Guys, we have an urgent breaking news coming out when it comes to nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. The US Commander-in-Chief now sends cruiser sub to Venezuela's doorstep. Once again, they are sending more ships to Caribbean. The US Commander-in-Chief is dispatching 2 more ships to the Caribbean to crack down on the gangs. A U.S. source said Tuesday, August 26, 2025, a week after sending warships towards Venezuela. A guided missile cruiser, the USS Erie, and a nuclear-powered fast attack submarine, the USS Newport News, are due in the region next week, the source familiar with the move told the AFP on condition of anonymity. Alright, so they're going to be sending a lot more stuff. Now, we did talk about this yesterday, but we have more updates. I believe the sleeping giant is going to war. Alright guys, before I start, for those of you that want to send us letters, a prayer request, you can send it to me, US Santiago, or my wife Jessica Santiago at 3432 US Highway 19, number 2, Holiday, Florida 34691. And for those of you that want to contribute to the channel, we do have the Cash App link and a PayPal link in the comments box and also the description box. Thank you again for your support. Your support is what keeps us on air. I just posted a video not too long ago. Earthquake strikes Alaska. And then the East Coast, not too far from New York, there was a 2.5 earthquake. I know to a lot of people that's too small. But again, we're talking about locations. Alright, if Times Square sees 4.0 magnitude earthquake, you know what happens to Times Square? Those tall buildings? Dominoes. Alright. Again, California is different, all right? But we're talking about East Coast stuff here. And South Carolina are urging residents to have insurance options ready, all right? And to have emergency preparation. They are sounding the alarm when it comes to these earthquakes. People need to start waking up. We are definitely seeing Bible prophecy happening right in front of our faces. Further details about their mission were not immediately available. The deployment comes after the U.S. Commander-in-Chief last week deployed 3 warships off the Venezuelan coast as part of efforts to curb the gangs by what his administration calls, I'm going to skip that name. Now, guys, I did watch the Spanish news, again, Univision and Telemundo, and you have Nicholas is calling the entire country to put on the camouflage, to get enlisted. You know, we need you guys. We need you. And also he's calling Colombia. Colombia, we need to work together on this one here. So they are getting a whole bunch of militias ready. All right, so 4 million. I mean, we're talking about great numbers. They just deployed 15,000 troops to the border. All right, so they see the ships out there. Venezuela is seeing the ships out there, and the U.S. Commander-in-Chief is sending another multiple ships that's going to arrive next week. So, again, guys, just watching Telemundo, Univision, I gotta stay on, in touch with all these news, Spanish and English. So, it says here the sleeping giant recently stepped up pressure on Venezuelan leader Nicholas, doubling its bounty to 50 million earlier this month on the gang's charges against the leftist strongman. Now, Nicholas said in response that he would mobilize millions, we're talking about millions of militia members to counter the sleeping giant threats. All right, so let's go with the next news here. So I do believe that sleeping giant is going to war. The sleeping giant is going to war. All right, this is like DEFCON stuff here. All right, naval buildup escalates. The U.S. Commander-in-Chief now sends cruiser and sub to Venezuela doorstep. All right, so here we go. The sleeping giant is increasing its military presence in the southern Caribbean even more as part of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief campaign to disrupt the sleeping giant gangs, the Latin American gangs, according to multiple sleeping giant officials familiar with the deployments. The two sources briefed on the plan told Reuters news agency that the guided missile cruiser USS Lake Erie and the nuclear-powered fast strike submarine USS Newport News will arrive in Caribbean waters by early next week. The official who spoke on condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the operation declined to detail the ship's exact missions, but they described the buildup as aimed at countering the warnings to U.S. national security posed by groups that the U.S. Commander-in-Chief administration has formally designated as the gang organization. Follow me with the code words here, guys. Now, they would have sent those ships last week. The problem is there was a hurricane, and Virginia decided not to send those ships due to the hurricane situation out there in the Atlantic, Hurricane Erin. It says here, another source familiar with the deployment confirmed on Monday to the Miami Herald that the sleeping giant would add more ships to the deployment that began assembling in the region last week. The group includes the amphibious ships San Antonio, Iwo Jima, and Fort Lauderdale, which officials said could be stationed off Venezuela north coast, and together the three ships are carrying about 4,500 personnel, including a Marine expeditionary unit of roughly 2,200 troops trained for rapid crisis response. Whoa. Now, from what I heard, Russia is keeping an eye on this. You guys already know Russia's ally with Nicholas. So, and also the Red Dragon's keeping an eye on this one here. So we could see things hitting the fan right in our backyard. So those vessels are set to operate alongside three Arleigh-Burke-class guided missile destroyers, the Samson, Jason Durham, and Gravely, which had been sent earlier to the Caribbean. The destroyers are built to counter simultaneous threats from air, land, sea, and below the surface. Their vertical launch system can fire Tomahawk. Man, Tomahawk. You know when was the last time Tomahawk were fired? When Donald dropped the hammer on Iran nuclear facility. They used the B-2 Spirit and dropped the bunker busters, and then right after that, they finish it off with Tomahawk. All right, so that's what's gonna happen. Again, I'm not saying they're gonna drop the bunker buster in Venezuela, but they possibly gonna use the Tomahawk cruise missiles. All right, for long-range strikes, standard missiles for air defense, and rocket-assisted torpedoes for anti-sub warfare. By adding amphibious ships and Marines, the task force gains the capability to land forces ashore quickly if ordered. Once again, the Pentagon has not publicly announced the deployment or their objectives, but senior administration officials have signaled they align with the U.S. Commander-in-Chief's broader pledge to use all elements of American power, from economic sanctions to military force, to stem the flow of the gangs into the sleeping giant and pursue those behind it. There was a huge bust yesterday. I think it was off Florida, if I'm not mistaken. They just stopped this boat, and boy, they had a lot of stuff in that boat. I mean, we're talking about, again, you know, DRUGS. I mean, there was a whole bunch. I mean, that was huge. And I live in the state of Florida. You know, we get that news all the time. And it seems like Donald and Ron DeSantis, you know, had this talk about, hey, we need to do something about the that region. I mean, you got people coming in. You got those product coming in. Again, boats. The U.S. Commander-in-Chief has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of the sleeping giant power to stop the product from flooding into our country, and to bring those responsible to justice. The sleeping giant, the White House Press Secretary Carolyn, told reporters last week when asked whether the U.S. administration was considering ground operation inside Venezuela. I have a strong feeling there's going to be a big breaking news, guys. I mean, it's going to be huge breaking news. U.S. just launched Tomahawks and stuff like that. And I can see Nicholas. Nicholas probably going to leave. He's probably going to just get on his plane and probably leave Dodge or something. Who knows? Probably going to go to Russia, just like what's his face? Assad. He left to Russia too. Cracking down on transnational gangs has become a defining theme of U.S. Commander-in-Chief domestic and foreign policy. Earlier this year, his administration formally designated Mexico, again, those lawlessness, and Venezuela gangs, and several others networks as global, T organizations. That designation gives the sleeping giant agencies expanded authority to freeze assets, disrupt financing, and pursue the gang's leadership with tools traditionally reserved for counter-T operation. The reason why I use code words because, again, many times I've been suspended. All right, so I'm trying to avoid getting hit. For some reason, this channel does get hit a lot compared to others. It says here more recently, the administration labeled Venezuela, so-called the gangs, an alleged traffic, network run by, So they're saying that this man here is like the head of the snake. He's the leader of the gangs and senior member of military as a specially designated the global T entity. The sleeping giant prosecutor have indicted Nicholas and several of his top aides, accusing them of turning Venezuela into the gang state and conspiring to flood the sleeping giant with, product. The State Department has placed a $50 million bounty on Nicholas, capture an unprecedented figure for a sitting head of state. It seems like his time is running out. He's been doing a lot of stuff. You know what's crazy? Those in the spotlight here, like Joe and Barack and all them, they knew about it. They were probably getting that too. They were probably getting all that too. But it ends here. The Venezuelan strongman has rejected the sleeping giant accusation, calling them politically motivated and aimed at justifying the regime change. In response to the naval buildup, Nicholas announced that his gov would activate a sweeping militia mobilization to defend national sovereignty. This week, I'm launching a special plan to ensure coverage by more than 4.5 million prepared army activated. An armed militia member across the national territory, Nicholas declared earlier this month during a televised event flanked by senior commanders. He denounced what he called extravagant, bizarre, and outlandish warning from the sleeping giants and vowed Venezuela would resist any foreign incursion. I'm sorry to tell you this, Nicholas, but you're not gonna. Again, the sleeping giant, when they send military, you have, again, you're not the top dog. You're not the bear. You're not Russia. Again, Russia's a strong, powerful country. Venezuela, no offense, but Venezuela, when it comes to military, they have no chance against the sleeping giant unless they have allies like the bear or the red dragon backing them up. So give me a second here, guys. So trying to see if I can find any more information here. With the sleeping giant warships nearby, Venezuela rushes troops to the border. Uh-oh. Time is ticking. Venezuela has deployed 15,000 troops, backed by drones. Okay, let's stop here. These drones are basically either two countries, Iran or Russia. I think it's Persia, Iran. Backed by drones, boats, and aircraft to its border with Colombia, with official insisting the buildup is to fight the gangs. As it says here, the buildup comes as three sleeping giant warships carrying 4,000 sailors and marines arrive nearby for an anti-gang mission. Caracas, I believe that is the capital if I'm not mistaken, already facing sleeping giant accusation that Nicholas and top allies are tied to the gang. Says it is defending national sovereignty against the imperialist warning. Wow. Move out the way. Wow. Give me a second here. Okay, so this is all the information for now. What are your thoughts, guys? I'm gonna keep it updated on this one here, but again, I know a lot of Spanish people. Me being Hispanic, I know a lot of Venezuelans and many people from South America, and again, many said that South America is just messed up. They all said it is all messed up. It's like it just, they even said that the leaders out there is just lawlessness, and a lot of them are happy. Believe it or not, a lot of them are happy that Donald is doing something about it. They are. So again, buckle up. I do believe the sleeping giant is going to war. This time, it's gonna be in our backyard. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Till next time, later. Peace.